He told me I was alone in my pregnancy, so I quietly built a life he couldn't take away. The night my husband told me he wouldn't spend another dollar on my pregnancy, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even argue. I simply looked across the kitchen table at the man I had loved for 7 years and asked one question. Are you sure? Ethan leaned back in his chair. Completely sure. He slid a sheet of paper toward me. At the top, in bold letters, it read, Household Expense Responsibility Agreement. I stared at it. I was 6 months pregnant. My feet were swollen. My back hurt constantly. And our unborn daughter had been kicking so hard that morning that I had laughed when I felt her moving beneath my ribs. Yet my husband had apparently decided that becoming a father was a financial inconvenience. He pointed at the paper. From now on, we split everything equally. Everything? Everything? I looked down the list. Groceries, utilities, rent, medical appointments, prenatal vitamins, transportation, baby supplies, even the hospital bill. I slowly looked back at him. You want me to pay half of the hospital bill? You work from home. I've been sick for months. That's not my fault. Those words hurt more than the contract. I placed my hand over my stomach. Our daughter isn't even born yet. Ethan shrugged. That's exactly why I'm trying to be responsible. Responsible. I almost laughed. Because there was something Ethan didn't know. Something I had discovered 3 weeks earlier. And if he knew what I'd already begun preparing, he would never have placed that paper in front of me. Before I continue, if stories about betrayal, family secrets, and women finding the courage to choose themselves are your kind of stories, take a moment to subscribe. Now, let me tell you how I got there. My name is Claire Bennett, and once upon a time, I thought Ethan was the safest person in the world. We met at a little bookstore near the university where I work part-time. He was studying architecture. I was finishing my degree in interior design. He used to come into the bookstore every Thursday evening and spend nearly an hour pretending to look for books. Eventually, I realized he wasn't interested in the books. He was interested in me. One rainy evening, he walked me to the bus stop holding his umbrella over my head, while his own shoulder got soaked. You know you're terrible at sharing umbrellas, I teased. He smiled. I'm terrible at a lot of things. Like what? Like pretending I don't come here every Thursday just to see you. I laughed. That was how it started. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was warm. He brought me coffee when I worked late. I cooked when he had difficult exams. We talked about buying a house, having children, growing old together. When he proposed, he didn't take me to an expensive restaurant. He took me back to the bookstore where we met. There were flowers between the shelves and a little wooden box containing my grandmother's old ring. I said yes before he even finished asking. For the first few years of our marriage, we were happy. Then Ethan got promoted. His salary doubled, then doubled again. He bought expensive watches, started wearing designer suits, joined private clubs. Suddenly, our simple life wasn't good enough. And slowly, neither was I. He began criticizing everything. My clothes, my work, the friends I spent time with, even the food I cooked. Then his younger sister, Vanessa, moved into our guest room after losing her job. She was supposed to stay for 2 months. She stayed for almost a year. And Vanessa had a talent for making every problem sound like my fault. One night, she looked at my old car and laughed. I don't understand why. Ethan married someone who doesn't care about appearances. I smiled. I care about plenty of things. She looked at my stomach. Apparently not money. Ethan laughed. That was the first time I noticed something had changed. He wasn't defending me anymore. He was enjoying watching other people disrespect me. Then I became pregnant. I thought the baby would bring us back together. I was wrong. When I showed Ethan the pregnancy test, he stared at it for several seconds. Then he said, "Are you sure?" I thought he was shocked. I smiled. Yes. He rubbed his forehead. Claire, this wasn't exactly planned. I know. Do you know how expensive a baby is? I remember laughing because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. From that day forward, everything became about money. The first ultrasound. How much? The doctor's appointment. Do you really need to go again? The crib. Find something cheaper. The stroller. We can buy a used one. Then I became sick. Morning sickness turned into all-day sickness. There were days I could barely get out of bed. One afternoon, I called Ethan from the bathroom floor. "I think I need to go to the hospital." He was silent. Then he asked, "Is it an emergency?" "I don't know. Claire, I'm in the middle of something." I closed my eyes. "Never mind." I hung up. That night, I drove myself to the emergency clinic. Everything was fine with the baby, but something inside me had changed. I stopped expecting Ethan to rescue me, and that's when I started noticing things. The strange bank statements, the expensive rest-hour aunt charges, the hotel receipts, the unexplained withdrawals. At first, I told myself there had to be an explanation. Then one afternoon, I opened an email accidentally sent to our shared account. It was from a woman named Melissa. The message was short. "I missed last weekend already." I stared at the screen. My hands became cold. I searched the hotel receipt from the previous month. It matched the week, and Ethan had told me he was attending a business conference. He hadn't been at a conference. He had been with her. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I did something he never expected. I became quiet. Very quiet. I began gathering copies of our financial records. I opened a private savings account. I contacted my old clients and accepted design projects again. I spoke to an attorney, and I started looking for a small apartment. Not because I wanted revenge, because I needed a safe place for my daughter. 3 weeks later, Ethan placed the contract on the table. The same night he told me I was responsible for half of my pregnancy expenses. I read every word. Then I picked up the pen. Ethan smiled. "I knew you'd understand." I signed it. He looked satisfied. "You know, Claire, this is what being an adult looks like." I nodded. "You're right." He didn't notice my smile, because I knew something he didn't. I wasn't signing away my rights. I was documenting his choices. The next morning, I met with my attorney. She read the agreement. Then she looked at me. "Did he really ask you to pay half of the delivery costs?" "Yes." She sighed. "Keep this." "I plan to." She smiled. "Good." 2 weeks later, I moved into my new apartment. Ethan didn't even realize I had been preparing to leave. I didn't take the expensive furniture. I didn't take his electronics. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. I took my clothes, my laptop, my grandmother's ring, the nursery furniture I had purchased with my own money, and the tiny ultrasound picture of my daughter. I left one envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside were the signed agreement and a note. It said, "You wanted everything divided equally, so I divided my life from yours." Then I left. 3 days passed. Ethan called 17 times. I didn't answer. On the 4th day, he came to my apartment. He was furious. "You can't just disappear." I stood behind the door. "I'm not disappearing. You took my child. Our daughter isn't your property." His face changed. "Claire, open this door." "No. I want to talk." "You had months to talk." He lowered his voice. "Please." That word surprised me. Ethan had never said please when he was angry. I opened the door slightly. He looked exhausted. I made a mistake. I shook my head. "No, you made several decisions. Give me another chance. You gave me a contract. I'll tear it up. You already showed me how you think." He stepped closer. "I love you." I looked at him for a long moment. "I believe you love the woman I used to be." He didn't answer. Then his eyes dropped toward my stomach. "Can I feel her?" I stepped back. "No." He looked devastated. But I couldn't give him access to my heart simply because he had finally realized what he was losing. The divorce took months. There were arguments. There were accusations. There were lawyers. There were moments when I almost wondered whether I'd made the right choice. But every time I doubted myself, I remembered that night at the kitchen table. "Your pregnancy is your biological choice." Those words became the reason I stopped begging to be loved. My daughter was born on a snowy morning in December. Her name was Lily. The moment the nurse placed her in my arms, I cried. Not because I was sad, because after everything I had survived, I finally understood something. I hadn't lost my family. I had protected it. Ethan eventually received visitation rights, and over time, he became a better father than he had been a husband. He paid child support. He attended Lily's school events. He never again complained about buying her shoes or medicine. But we were never husband and wife again. As for me, I rebuilt my career. Within 2 years, my design business had grown beyond anything I had imagined. I hired 3 employees, moved into a beautiful house, and created a nursery for Lily that looked like something from a storybook. One afternoon, several years later, I was sitting outside watching Lily ride her bicycle when Ethan arrived for his weekend visit. He watched her laughing in the driveway. Then he looked at me. "You seem happy." "I am." He nodded. "I used to think money was everything." I smiled. "I know." He looked down. Was I really that terrible? I didn't insult him. I simply answered honestly. "You weren't terrible every day." He looked at me. But the days you were cruel changed everything." He nodded slowly. Then Lily ran toward us. "Daddy." Ethan smiled. He picked her up, and for a moment, I watched them together. There was no bitterness in my heart anymore. Only peace. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't watching someone suffer. Sometimes it's building a life so beautiful that you no longer care whether they regret losing you. I once thought walking away meant my marriage had failed. Now I understand. Walking away was the first time I chose myself. And in doing so, I gave my daughter something more valuable than a perfect family. I gave her a mother who knew her worth. And that was worth everything. Enjoy emotional stories, shocking twists, and unforgettable family drama? Subscribe to my channel and join us for a new story.